Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and we're joined by Tim Picciott, the Liberty advisor, and we are going to go into some interesting stuff today as we see the government, well, I shouldn't say the government, the Federal Reserve print trillions and trillions of dollars into complete garbage corporate nonsense stocks that obviously were built to fail anyway eventually. We're going to go into that and much more today, as the Zero Hedge article says. Banks slash credit card limits as economic crisis not over. Gee, you think? But before we go into that, make sure to hit that like button, share on social media to get around the shadow banning, join our newsletter at www.iambanned.com. You can find us on Flote, BitChute, Minds, and LBRY, also linked below. We won't be on YouTube much longer. And of course, you can find different ways to fund us. We are completely viewer funded because we are completely demonetized. So there's GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, Bitcoin, all those ways below that you can help keep independent media and free information alive. You could also become a client of Tim Picciott's at thelibertyadvisor.com, all linked below. Let's get into this. So as the Zero Hedge article says, banks slash credit card limits as economic crisis not over. While the Federal Reserve and the Trump administration plow trillions of dollars into corporate America, buying investment-grade bonds and rocketing the stock market to new highs, there's a much different story playing out of economic hardships for the everyday American. As the article continues here, it says there's a massive pullback by credit card issuers at the moment, reducing credit card limits and canceling accounts of consumers. Compare Card's new survey shows the economic fallout from the virus-induced recession is far from over. About 25% of Americans with credit cards had an account involuntarily canceled between mid-May to mid-July, while 33% said card companies slashed their credit card limits. As it continues, it says about 70 million people, more than one-third of credit card holders, said they involuntarily had credit limit reduced or a credit card account closed altogether in a 60-day period stretching from mid-May to mid-July. The report is a clear sign that credit card issuers are still closing cards and reducing credit limits on cardholders in huge numbers months after an April 2020 Compare Card survey showed that nearly 50 million cardholders had a card closed or credit limit reduced in the first month in which the coronavirus pandemic took hold of the country, according to Compare Cards. As it continues here, it says Matt Schultz, the chief industry analyst at Compare Cards, told Yahoo Money that an awful lot of Americans had one of their financial security nets taken out from under them in one of the most difficult economic times in American history. The pullback by credit card companies was last seen during the Great Recession, when about 16% of cardholders saw limits reduced and accounts involuntarily closed. And I quote, "This is in a lot of ways a much bigger issue today than it was in the Great Recession," Schultz said. "It makes sense that banks are taking an even harder line with lending because there's so much that they don't know and they're so nervous about risk." The key takeaways from the survey is that card closures and credit limit reductions continue through summer, even though the Trump administration promotes a rocket ship recovery in the economy. Well, Tim, what do you think of this rocket ship recovery in the economy, considering just trillions of dollars printed into the stock market while people are going broke, facing moratoriums on rents? 28 million people could go homeless. Whether that actually happens or not is besides the point. Countless people out of work. It's just unbelievable what we're seeing, but we're told that everything's just beautiful.
Is that rocket ship named the Columbia? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I hate making like a joke on that when people, lost their life. But anyways, I mean, it's been a long time. But anyways, there's no way this is going to be a rocket ship recovery unless we're talking about the stock market, which they can game and they can do things like you mentioned before where they're not. It was really actually the bond market that was a bigger problem than the stock market. And that's why they came in using leverage to actually 7-to-1 to buy junk bonds and then 10-to-1 to buy investment grade bonds. And that is, creating like a zombie like status, which means that you have corporations out there that are surviving on just basically paying their interest payments. And absent the Federal Reserve bailout over here, there'd be no way that these, that they'd be able to survive. But what happens is, as a credit card, you see, one one of your cards gets slashed, then it, let's say you're at, like 30% debt ratio on your cards, then they slash your card, and now all of a sudden you're at 50%. Then the other card holders are like, oh crap, the 50, they're at 50%, and then they slash your cards, and then now you're at like 75%, and then it creates this vicious cycle, and then all your rates and your score and everything is jacked up. And I've had that happen to me before. I mean, in 2018, I decided to take a principled stance and speak, on Bitcoin as a financial advisor right after the firm I was with said you're not allowed to speak on Bitcoin. So I did resign, and then the government decided that they'd wait, most of 2018 in order to allow me to work again. So for those of you who are out of your job, I do emphasize with you, I grew up, a lot of people think, okay, I'm just some financial advisor, so I probably grew up super rich. I had, mainly grew up with a 20-year-old single parent father. So, I do, understand the struggles that are going on out there. And, there's been times where I also have known that I was getting paid a lot. So I've run up a credit card, and all of a sudden then the credit card company then decides to, hey, we're going to go, slash your rate, even though I was planning on, paying that off in like a month. But it is a cycle where it's very hard to get that back. And, I've seen now, my credit's one of the highest it's ever been, but yet I've seen, where it's going from having like 0% offers to like, oh, you're getting like 20% offer, even though I'm at like exceptional credit rate, and who would do a balance transfer at 20%?
Well, I should point out just from a personal level here. I had parents that divorced when I was younger and got hit really hard with credit card debt because the money didn't come in that they were expecting when they spent the money. And myself personally, I've been hit really hard recently because I was demonetized on YouTube. So I've maxed out 2 credit cards. And I never even really used the credit cards for much other than necessities if I needed to use a card for something digitally in the past, because I've always been very much against credit cards. I held out on even getting a credit card till I was like 23, 24 years old because I just didn't want to see a repeat of what happened to my parents. And now I'm in that situation as well, though I'm not sure if they're ever going to even make people pay half of these credit cards off, because honestly, so many people are facing credit card debt right now. What are they going to do if no one has a job, if no one has a home, if everyone's completely broke because of this massive behemoth of weight on everyone's shoulders due to the government shutting down? Everyone keeps saying it's coronavirus. No, it's the government that shut everyone down, the government that pushed everyone out on the curb, and now they're coming in as predators to prey off of everyone, off of their debt. But how could they even make anyone pay this stuff at the end of the day when no one has any money?
And yeah, and at the end of the day, they want to inflate the problems away where they, give a bunch of people, all this free money. But this also is, as Max Kaiser would talk about, this is an interest rate apartheid where these big banks that are, lending out the money, they don't have the money either. They don't even have, even have to legally have reserves at this point. And that's something that even, Jerome Powell said on CNBC, I think it was back in like maybe March or April, talking about that. And so, you've got bankrupt banks giving out loans to, their friends at, 1%, 2%. And actually nowadays, even if you have a great credit, it's actually very hard, especially a business. It's very, very hard. I think even JP Morgan a few months ago even said they're not even giving out business loans unless it's backed by, one of the PPP or, different CARES Act loans that they have. So with that, they have no risk at all. The government is going to pay them for these loans. If we're processing the loans, they're getting paid billions and billions of dollars. That's a secret bailout. The fact that they can park money at the Fed and get interest rates off that's another sort of like secret bailout that they're getting. It's risk-free. And, this is an interest rate apartheid where you have, the average, interest rates are at record lows. The government can borrow the money at, 1 point whatever percent or even less than 1% if they're, on like a 10-year bond. But yeah, if you're, Joe Smo over there and you're, going through hard times, great, here's your 30% interest rate. And so, what, maybe if there was some sort of, and I hate like even like suggesting a government program because the last thing I want is a government program. But, if you're going to have this crony capitalist system, why don't you have some sort of thing where, maybe the average person out there can go get, a $50,000 loan at 1%, and then that would be a great way to stimulate the economy. But then it would, and it would be going through the banks too. But the banks want to have their cake and eat it too. And a lot of these banks would be bankrupt, absent 2008 bailout, absent this bailout. These banks, a lot of companies too. So I'm sort of using that interchangeably. A lot of companies would be bankrupt. What just went on. But the Fed,
and that's the thing, Tim. All these companies that we're seeing getting all this money while everyone suffers, they shouldn't even exist by free market standards of people, like just based on the actual demand of them. They put people in a situation, and this is what I've talked about many times, and it's a market principle that they've used to their advantage many times. The government, they start a sob story about monopolies and how terrible these monopolies are, and that's why we need to tax the rich. We need to tax all these guys more. And what happens is they end up blanketly taxing a ton of people about the same amount. Small businesses cannot keep up with the big businesses. Obviously, they go under because there's no competition. There's no incentive for competition for the monopolies. So they're happy with the taxes being raised because they can handle it while their competition can't. So they get propped up further. And then the regulations and the red tape at the same time push the small businesses underground while the big businesses grow and grow and grow. And all under the guise of stopping the big business. It's literally Orwellian doublespeak. The same things that the left and much of the right also say will stop these big monopolies is what creates monopolies in the first place. And then during the coronavirus lockdown, we see at the same time them shut down small grocery stores while propping up Walmart and saying you can go to Walmart, you just can't go to the beach because coronavirus, because that makes sense. It's absolutely insane, and it's perpetuating the issue. Most of these companies should have gone under long ago because they aren't actually efficient. They're not good. Prices would be lower if there's more competition on the free market. So every time you see Walmart, oh, we have low prices, that's why we're so big. No, if there was actual competition, prices would be lower than Walmart. Walmart couldn't exist in that kind of environment, at least to the extent that they are right now. I mean, honestly, it's just a perpetuation of this. And then at the end of the day, people suffer. People are pushed into dependency. And if there is a dependent public, they're a subservient public because they're desperate for anything they can get to feed their families. And then the banks and the government takes over, and they love it. They absolutely love it. So, Tim, going forward, what can the average person do about this situation? You're a certified financial planner. You're an advisor. Obviously, people, if they're interested in becoming a client of Tim's, you can go to thelibertyadvisor.com, linked below. But, I mean, what can people do as far as survival in this kind of environment with credit card debt and this massive amount of debt behemoth on their shoulders?
Yeah, and first I just want to bring up one more point where you're talking about, taxing the rich. The ultra elite want high taxes because you take a look at the 2008 bailout, the largest recipient of your bailout funds, actually, if you break it down by company to company, was actually Warren Buffett, because he was, through Berkshire Hathaway, the owners of these different companies that got the bailouts, but it's also a tool for control. And guys like Warren Buffett, they only pay themselves like $100,000 a year, but then he's getting paid through capital gains, and then he's able to then get away from paying capital gains by doing things like different types of charitable trusts and giving money away to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So the ultra elite are using people like myself. And one of the first forays I did, getting into like a crypto business was, helping, guys that got in really early. I mean, mainly guys, but, who got in really early, how they can use charitable trust to legally avoid paying capital gains. Don't hate the player, hate the game. I didn't make up the rules when it comes to doing this stuff. And it's really only, don't contact me like, hey, you got $1,000, you want to avoid paying tax on your Bitcoin. These are really only like 7-figure type strategies based on how it's being used. Not that I won't do it for you. Well, I won't, because it doesn't make sense and you shouldn't do it. But anyways, the ultra elite at the very top, they want to have high taxes because it's a means of control. But what the average person can do is, this should be like a warning sign. It's not easy to do, but if you're in, and it's hard to give that blanket advice because, and I'm not really giving advice, but if you're in super big credit card debt, there's one set of circumstances of what somebody should do. If you're able to just barely get by, but you have you don't have a lot of debt, but that's maybe one thing. But if you've got some considerable assets, that's another thing. So it's really hard to kind of give a blanket advice. But eventually getting having an emergency reserve of 3 to 6 months of cash. Probably even better to have 3 to 6 months. And what most experts will claim is you want to have 3 months if you're married and you have 2 jobs in the household. 6 months if you're just single. But it probably makes sense, and guys like David Morgan will even agree about this. And obviously because he's a silver guy, but having that reserve in silver maybe instead of cash, because that is a pretty universal currency, and it's kind of the poor man's gold. But I think it's a good idea to have that. But it's not. But it's easier said than done, because a lot of people do have a lot of debt. But our arming yourself with knowledge, getting more important than anything, having an income that isn't necessarily tied to that you can control. That maybe you start a business, you have some sort of side hustle, eventually turning your side hustle into your real job. I mean, that's, you know, in arming yourself with knowledge, so then learning ways to be able to get a side hustle, be able to, you know, get different skills, you know, whether it's video editing, whether it's, you know, creating your own social media company that can, you know, go to different advertising. I mean, there's so many different ways to make money that's out there that's not controlled by the man.
I could use a new video editor.
Yeah, and so I mean, but the thing is, these are skills that people can learn. I mean, I taught myself, you know, at a basic level how to video edit. I mean, I didn't know how to do it. I just, you know, through YouTube these days, you know, I hate to, you know, promote them, but, you know, there is a lot of things that you can teach yourself on YouTube for free. There's, you know, Udemy. There's different classes that are super, super cheap. I mean, I wouldn't go rushing out to go get like an MBA at $100,000 a year through Zoom. I think that's a stupid idea. You know, different certifications, but make yourself more valuable, you know, and so especially if you're lower on the lower end of the spectrum over here, getting different skills, you know, whether, you know, learn to code, but there's different things. You know, if you're younger, learning to code is, I mean, I'm not saying if you're a West Virginia coal miner to start going learning code. Like, I forgot who was the one that said that. You know, maybe this video would be, you know, taken down and demonetized now for saying that, but well, I guess we're already demonetized, so it doesn't matter. So make sure, you know, because Josh right now is in a bad situation. So, you know, they're, you know, helping Josh out, you know, even, and the best thing to do is, you know, to help, not to bring this, you know, turn around to Josh, but, you know, creating a monthly subscription where you're giving them $1 a month, $2 a month. You know, even if you're broke, you can afford $2 a month, because we're giving you knowledge and we're trading that knowledge, you know, hopefully for, you know, for me, I mean, I just want to get the information out there. If you get clients, great. If you do want to become a client, you know, basically Josh and I are going camping at the Jackalope Freedom Festival from the 3rd to 10th. So, you know, if you know, email me at tim@innovativewealth.com, I can probably fit you in, you know, either Thursday or Friday. And, you know, if not, you know, we're going to have to wait till, you know, we get back on the 11th. And, you know, it's, you know, we've been putting these ads out here for a while, so, you know, I need, you know, take a break too sometime. And so, yeah, it's really hard to say what the average person should do, because there's such a wide swath of what I'm not Susie Orman, or I'm not Dave Ramsey that's going to give a one size fits all approach to everybody. And, you know, I've never really seen a lot of rich people that were following their advice, but, you know, I have seen a couple people, but by and large, but, you know, and they are good for people at the lower end of the spectrum to be able to get out of debt. Yeah. But, you know, there's a lot of things you can do, and, you know, and it can start by having a free 15-minute consultation. Go to thelibertyadvisor.com or links below, and you go on my website. There's a spot where you can schedule right with me, and you will see that, you know, those spots are taken up through about like August 13th or 14th. So, you know, it is, you know, get in now, you know, otherwise you're going to have to wait till September, you know, to come talk to me.
Absolutely. And I think it's really just important that people realize a very basic fundamental of humanity is the independence. It's what got us to this point as human beings, as human beings that really against nature are very weak creatures. If you look at the rest of the animal kingdom, it's amazing that we've made it this far. Honestly, we use our brains to think logically to get around these issues, and obviously use our strength to build for ourselves and prepare for ourselves and be individuals. I think that's really important. It's responsibility. Responsibility is the basis of freedom itself, and we need to get off of the dependency system, which we are all being led astray to. I mean, this is that cycle that I've talked with many times that Tim likes to correct me on, but it's you know, good times create you know, weak men create hard times create strong men create good times. It goes in a circle. It's a circular metric that we've seen throughout the eons as long as humanity has been around, and we are entering into the hard times right now. And as we're entering into our hard times, as our friend Stefan Arnio, who we got to interview quite a few times before he passed away earlier this year, pointed out, this is going to be something for the record books. What we're witnessing right now, what we're entering into right now, is absolutely unprecedented, and we need to be prepared, and we cannot put ourselves in a position where we end up completely in debt, completely subservient to the system, because we are dependent and because we're desperate in order to feed our families and feed ourselves. We cannot put ourselves in that system, into that situation. So I beg everyone to seriously, if you haven't prepared for like a year down the line yet, do it now. Do it now. Do it now. This isn't investment advice. It's about humanity, basic humanity, being able to survive as a human being. It's never been more important to be prepared, because things are going to get worse before they get better. I guarantee you they're going to get worse. So I want people to do whatever they can. Stock up on like cans of beans, whatever it might be. Just start doing something to make yourself self-sufficient so that you aren't put at the bad end of the stick and end up completely getting consumed by the system that is there to enslave humanity, to push you into dependence, and to sacrifice you as a pawn for the king and the queen. So don't allow it to happen. They are preying off of people like you right now, and you need to break free. Anyway, we've gone into this long enough in this video.
You know, and let's say in the comments which one you like better. I think it's adversity makes men, prosperity makes monsters, or your version of it. But
hard times create strong. I'm anyway.
Roll off the tongue as much as
I don't know. I like mine better. But anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us. And as Tim mentioned, there's ways that you can pledge, donate to WAM as well as with Bitcoin, GoFundMe, Subscribestar, Patreon, obviously on Flote you can pledge in crypto as well on a monthly basis. Obviously, we are completely viewer funded because we were completely demonetized because we dare to talk about the truth. It's this very, very extreme thing that we do. Also, make sure to check the links below for our newsletter, www.iamband.com. Just put in your email. It just takes 2 seconds and you can sign up for a newsletter and we'll actually be able to reach you. We won't be on YouTube much longer, so join us on Flote.app, BitChute, LBRY, and Minds. Specifically Flote.app, BitChute, and LBRY. We are moving there, and we're only going to be posting trailers on YouTube past November 5th.
Let's take a bet of whether or not we'll be kicked off before November 5th, before we can actually just voluntarily leave. So I think there's at least a 50% chance we're going to be kicked off ahead of time. At
least. So make sure to support us in any way you can. We really appreciate it. Hitting that like button, sharing on social media to get around the shadow banning, all of that helps. Anyways, we appreciate all of you guys watching, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and Tim Picciott signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. My friends, it is go time. We are completely demonetized on YouTube, and we depend on the viewer to stay alive and spread the message of freedom and truth. So check those links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, anything you guys could do to help keep independent media alive helps enormously in helping spread this message to the masses. So make sure to check those links. Donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen or below. We really appreciate anything you could do to keep us alive. You could check those links below for Cointree as well, where you can find other cryptocurrencies that you can donate and keep WAM alive. Find us on Flote.app, Flote.app, as well as BitChute and LBRY and Minds. We're on all the other platforms. We are leaving YouTube soon, so make sure to find us at those sites because it's the only way we can keep talking to you, the masses, the great people that actually care about the future of free humanity. Also, join our new newsletter at www.iamband.com. Anything helps at this point, guys. We need to support free information online. This is the most difficult time in our history, and it takes a lot of hard work to keep our message alive in the face of great evils that have taken over the propaganda news on television as well as on YouTube, where YouTube decides what you can or cannot see. We need your help, my friends. So I really appreciate anything you guys can do. Check those links. There's many ways you can help. Until next time, though, thanks, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Bye.